What's the most overrated luxury brand?
They used to wear it. It used to be Gucci.
Gucci. Okay, fair enough. Anything else?
Probably LEs.
Okay.
Adidas. Air Max 270.
Oh, fair enough. I like it. Okay.
Stussy.
Oh,
yeah.
Stash House.
Oh, Stash House.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Charlestown.
okay.
Bit of local hate.
Going local.
Or Adidas.
Adidas?
Yeah,
I don't
like
like
Adidas.
Nike.
I don't like
It's
Nike.
cheap.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it just reminds me of like Roblox or something.
Roblox.
That's so funny.
Like all the Roblox avatars are wearing.
Yeah, right.
Okay, if you could have all the money in the world or all the power, what would you have?
I'll own a whole country.
Which country? Which country do you want?
Let's say India.
I just want to travel the world in a van.
Oh,
yeah.
Where would you start? Where's the first place?
Probably up Gold Coast way.
Okay, fair enough. All right, what's the best way to make money? What's the best job ever?
Drop shipping.
In the mines.
Mines, yeah.
The
Okay,
mines,
okay,
yeah.
fair enough. Any other responses?
Don't work at Macca's.
Doing a Sparky.
Sparky. Yeah, I like it. Fair enough.
Carpentry.
Carpentry. What about anyone else?
Catch chickens. Thinking about maybe going in Boilermaker.
Oh, Boilermaker. Heck yeah,
yeah.
I like it. Okay, fair enough.
Sell drugs.
So drugs. What kind of drugs? Anything.
I think he means like big pharma, you know, like
Oh, yeah. I like
prescription pills.
COVID vaccines.
Yeah. COVID vaccines, yeah.
I want to own my own houses and stuff.
Okay, rent them out your own stuff.
Yeah. I do real estate, so a bit
Yeah?
of business for you.
Selling houses?
Not yet.
Not
Only
yet.
holiday rentals and
Holiday rentals?
permanent rentals.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Have you ever wanted to have some great business ideas, but
Yes.
you didn't know where to start?
Bro, every
Or do you
day.
think about your existential demise as we explore the thoughts of the future, or just get back to some classic basic finance? We have got the show for you this week.
Wow.
Welcome to HQLA episode 28.
Boom! What's been happening?
Well, we are currently, we've got our website up and running, hqla.com.au.
We did. And when we say up and running, we just mean that search engines can now actually see it.
Yeah, so we were up and running, and now we're even more up and running. Let's say that. So go check us out if you want a bit of additional content. You know,
There's some
from us.
articles up there. We like to put relevant articles, things
Yeah.
that people have been looking into, things that might be interesting to you. So get on there and have a look.
couple of articles.
That's right.
What else?
These episodes are on there. They'll link you to YouTube. You can watch them locally on the site. Whatever you want. Do whatever you want. This may be the last ever episode of us in Newcastle whilst we are both residents of Newcastle. And so this is a significant moment. And for that reason, this is a significant view. Potentially the best view in Newcastle.
And why would that be the last?
Yeah, it's a
one?
good question. The inevitable question. And the answer really is because I am moving to Melbourne in 2 weeks and Isaac is considering the same. And so there's a chance that by the end of this year, your boys are living in Melbourne.
Yeah, we will see. Hey, and
We'll see.
all right. So what else is going on? There's a bit of an event going on behind us.
Yeah, that's
Nathan.
right. If you can see behind us and you might see some of the B-roll, we do have some sort of surfing festival going on behind us. I'm unsure as to the exact festival. I don't know if it's Surfest. Usually Surfest is at a different beach. So I don't know what this is, but it looks pretty significant. There seems to be some cameras and some proper infrastructure there. Yeah, we don't really know. That's not really Isaac and I's speciality, to be honest.
Well, you love surfing, Nathan.
I do like surfing, but
Yeah.
I don't watch sports,
Okay, fair enough.
just as a general rule.
Fair enough. General rule for life.
Yeah, don't watch them.
Yeah. So I thought we could crack into a few of the things that have been going on.
Yeah, what's
And
been going on?
A few of the things are pretty relevant. So the first one is
Could I
about...
make mention of one thing?
Okay.
Just, you know how sometimes like there's an obvious elephant in the room and if you don't address it, people are just focused on that? I think the obvious element is the table. I'm just assuming people might be looking at it.
no, they
This
can't
is a
tell.
product of how difficult it was to get to this location.
Yeah.
We have trampled through the forest to get to this location to be with you here today. And so I just wanted to point that out just in case anyone was wondering what's going on. And budgets are tight. You know, it's a recession. So this is what we're dealing with.
That's it. And speaking of recessions,
Yeah.
so the UK central bank has announced that it's considering launching the central bank digital currency, or CBDC. So this is really interesting.
It is interesting.
So this is essentially the Bank of England backed stablecoin that
Okay.
will be pegged to the pound. So
Okay.
I think one of the key differences between this and Luna, for example, which we saw having a massive crash last
Yes, it
year.
wasn't great success.
Yeah. So one of the main differences would probably be that you would hope the Bank of England can hold its own against mass selling.
Yeah.
Um,
okay. Yeah.
And so,
True.
I mean, I
True.
assume it's probably not too different to forex trading on the internet anyway, with the pound anyway. So,
I'm not aware of any stablecoins that are linked to the UK pound. Like a lot of them are linked to the US dollar, right?
Yeah, well,
Oh,
here's the
Okay.
So the Chinese are currently testing the digital yuan
Yes.
in major cities like Beijing and Shanghai.
Yep.
And so they seem to be leading the world on government-backed crypto projects.
Okay.
So it's a very interesting
Watch the space.
interesting subject.
Can anyone buy it?
No, well, it's not launched yet, so it's
Okay.
it's in prototype sort of thing.
Okay.
But the idea will be they'll have more control over the central bank rate and all that stuff,
Yep.
and they'll be able to
Okay.
kind of have more traceability of where money's being used,
Yep.
because it'll be easier to follow. So criminal activities,
Yeah.
don't do them in the UK.
Well, don't do them in general. It's probably our recommendation.
Yeah.
Although
Just stick
one
to
of
the
my lawyer
Bitcoin.
friends once told me that it's not illegal unless you get caught. So now I'm in two minds about this.
It's true. That's along with most things, I guess. It's not advice, by the way. So
This is not legal advice
yeah, absolutely.
or financial advice.
We've got true. We've got 31 Abrams tanks that are being deployed to Ukraine. So that's alongside German-made Leopard tanks.
I feel like I understood two of those words of what you just said.
So the support's been added to it's added up to 21 billion from the US, right?
Oh, 21 billion
And,
of proceeds from the US to the Ukraine
Yeah.
for their war.
Yeah,
efforts.
yeah. So I feel like this is
21
one of the situations
Okay.
where there's a huge amount of support
Yep,
given.
yep.
And then later on, the US, for example, calls in their debt, says,
yeah.
"Oh, this wasn't aid. This was,
It was actually a debt.
this was a deal."
Yep.
And so it could end up like one of those other international campaigns, but
Yep.
hopefully it's not. The Abrams tanks are pretty impressive. They're I think they're over $10 million each too. So
Wow.
it's
Okay.
should be a huge spend.
Shout out to the book
Um,
Financial Hitman, I think it's called, which talks a little bit about some of that stuff with government debt's interesting.
Yeah, I thought you might find that interesting.
Yeah, it's good.
And here we go. I'll need to have a little in place reminder here to remind everyone that we're still a finance podcast.
Yes, Economic Hitman. Sorry,
and,
it's the name of that book. Sorry, keep
Economic
going.
Hitman.
Economic Hitman.
Yeah. And so what comes next might be a little bit drier, but here we go. Got to get the finance out of the way
Wait,
for the.
You've really made me excited for whatever's coming next.
Oh no, it's good. It's good.
Okay, great.
All right, so it's the best month for the Nasdaq that we've seen since 2001.
Bro, that's great news.
Which is really
That's
interesting.
fantastic news.
Yeah, exactly. So we've
Great
seen
months in 2001.
Yeah, so it's the best month for the Nasdaq since 2001.
Really?
So we've seen an 11.5% gain in the index for the first month
Wow.
of 2023.
Okay.
And that's alongside Jerome Powell, chairman of the Money Printing Factory and
Yep.
the Federal Reserve.
Yep.
Has said that the end rates are 5.1 to 5.4%
Yep.
by the end of the year.
Yep.
And so
Where are we now?
what's happened is, well, it's currently at 4.5%.
Okay.
And what's happened now is that the market's simply not believing
Yep.
the rate. So they've priced in a 2% probability for that rate actually to hit.
Yep.
And that's currently with our RBA rate sitting at 3.1% as well.
Gotcha.
So since we last talked,
Yes.
it looks like Microsoft have bought a $10 billion stake in OpenAI.
Yep.
And so that goes along with their $1 billion original deal.
Yep.
And it's a bit of a confusing one because some sources say that it's basically a loan.
Yep.
And they pay out a percentage of revenue
Yes.
towards that loan.
Interesting.
And some of it has said that it's all equity and Microsoft owns 49%. And, so
Okay.
it's one of those. But that either way, that'll go towards a portion of owning OpenAI, which is alongside Elon Musk, Peter Thiel,
Yep.
Reid Hoffman, Y Combinator, Andreesen Horowitz, Tiger Global, and AWS.
Wow.
So all of those have a stake in OpenAI. So that'll be
Interesting.
really interesting. Yeah.
All the big boys.
And that's what's been going on this week.
Okay, thank you very much. I love it. Well, that's very interesting to hear. It's good to know what's happening. OpenAI, ChatGPT, certainly changing lives a little bit. I had a uni lecture, and I've got some exams coming up for my degree, and all the old law lecturers are trying to describe why it's not appropriate to use during online exams and stuff like that. It's always interesting hearing them talk about technology. Now, the company that I want to talk about, and it's been a while since I've spoken about a company, is pretty prolific in the space of which they're in. And the company is called Stripe.
This is a good one.
Yeah, I think it is a good one.
Yeah.
Interesting company. It's one of these companies that has their fingers in most things commercially. But I guess if this space is not interesting to you, sort of the startup finance space, it might not necessarily be something that you're aware of. So, there was a lot of talk about Stripe going public. One of the interesting anecdotal sort of recent experiences with a friend of ours was kind of thinking that he might be able to get like an early buy-in for like an IPO, and it turned out to be a scam. And so there's a lot of different sources saying a lot of different things about whether or not they would go public, and probably they would have by now, maybe, had the market not have gone into a relatively serious recession. But they are still a private company. So, did you know it was started by two brothers?
I didn't know.
Yeah, started by two brothers, 17 and 19 when they first started it. And both of them went to MIT. Although, interestingly enough for Dave, who's our editor, who is an Irishman, these two founders are from Ireland, is my understanding. And so shout out to our Irish startup geniuses. One of them at MIT studied electrical engineering and computer science, which seems relevant.
Makes sense, yeah.
And the other studied physics, which is interesting. And so I wrote a few things down about them. So the names of those guys are John and Patrick Collison. I believe Patrick, I could be wrong, but I believe Patrick is still currently the CEO. And so some interesting things. So for those who aren't aware, Stripe, their focus is basically to simplify the payment processing of transactions for businesses predominantly online. So this is the sort of transformation that we saw online when it went from originally having to use these clunky systems of inputting your card information, getting 1 million verifications. It might be a bank's system or whatever it was previously, to now these really sleek, streamlined systems of quickly verifying, your identity as a person, as a non-fraudulent transaction, and then making whatever purchases you want to make. And I'll talk a little bit about how they do that sort of surface level. So previously, this industry was very much dominated by a few major players, but mostly being banks and financial services companies. And the process, the interesting thing here is really the customers of Stripe are not consumers, obviously. The customers are the businesses, right? And so when we talk about making payments processes simple, yes, we do mean simple for the consumer, but really what they mean is simple for businesses to integrate into their platform.
Yeah, because they want to put the code into their payments, and they want to have something that just collects payments easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you've had a bit of experience in this world now, and one of the things, one of the first things you know about Stripe is that they're famous for this just very simple couple of line code that allows you to input or allows you to have like sort of a plugin that allows you to take payment processing on your website or whatever you're building. So it's kind of interesting. So they offer a few other products now, sort of ancillary to that, which is, they can do multiple currencies. They can do reoccurring payments, subscriptions, which I think is important a lot nowadays. And they also do some integrations with physical card readers in brick and mortar stores. Originally it was called Dev/Payments. I assume that's sort of when it was sort of in the garage stage of when it was being built.
Yeah.
And so
Much better name now.
Well, the question begs, or the question begging to be asked is, well, why Stripe? Any guesses?
My guess.
What does it make you think when you think of Stripe?
I think of strip on the back of the credit card, and so that's
correct. That was the initial reference point. That's actually exactly what the yeah.
Okay, well, all right. I didn't mean to guess it. Exactly.
No, so that's exactly right. So the reference was stripes, or the stripe on the back of a credit card.
Yeah. Okay.
But what are the feelings that are evoked when you think of the word Stripe?
I think of maybe a race car.
Okay. And what's some attributes of a race car?
Fast.
Fast.
Yeah, fast, quick.
Okay. Quick.
Efficient.
Very good. Streamlined.
Uses a lot of fuel.
Exactly right. So that's exactly what they wanted. So there was this concept of it sort of having a nod to the previous generation of credit cards. And it was also invoking feelings of streamlined, straightforward, as you said, efficient, quick, all those things. So yeah, that's exactly right. So it was founded in 2010. as I said, Patrick and John, they went to MIT. They've been featured in the 30 under 30 on Forbes list. And at this point, they're now, as I said, they're originally from Ireland, but it's now obviously headquartered in San Francisco, and there's more than 8,000 employees. So it's a pretty big operation. So really, what's the specific value proposition? As I sort of said, it's twofold. It's easy integration for the business. So if they're creating a website and they've got their developer working on that, they're able to easily integrate that in using basic coding. Clearly, I know a lot about that stuff. But more importantly, or maybe as importantly, is the interface that comes alongside it. So it gives them a bunch of really usable dashboard information. And so some of that is things like, and it can be accessed from any device, phone, anything that has internet for these business owners. Things like number of transactions, quantity or amount of processed transactions within a period, things about managed minimum subscriptions. So
are we talking about the data collection side for the business?
The business owner, exactly right.
Yeah.
So it's what does it provide them as a dashboard or as a database? Reoccurring payments information. So that's gathering information on all of these people, whether it's email addresses or phone numbers, and creating a database for all of that stuff, which I think is as valuable as the original integration process. On top of that, it provides quite a robust and secure payments method. And I'll talk a little bit about how it uses AI technology to do that, just very briefly.
We love AI.
We do. So I listened to Lex Friedman a little bit, as much as I can. Very long form podcast, so it's difficult sometimes to keep up. And it's interesting. Some people talk about ML or AI. Basically means the same thing, machine learning or, I don't know, artificial intelligence. I don't really know if there's actually an official difference, but it seems like it's interchangeable. So basically, they profess to, and I suppose Combank maybe would have similar things. They profess to have specific algorithms that detect fraud in real time.
Not that that's where I work or anything.
No. But you're a customer, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a customer. Yeah, that's what I meant.
And so they have this machine learning algorithms that can detect fraud in a real time, apparently.
So if I can interject
yeah,
there,
please do,
PayPal
please.
had a huge issue with fraud originally because they were making a small percentage of money off each transaction.
Yes,
and that was fantastic.
Similar, very similar.
But as soon as a fraud charge came up, so let's say they process 700 transactions and they take 1% of that, right?
Yep.
As soon as there's a $70 fraud, all of that gain from that 700 transactions is wiped out because they made $70 from 700 transactions. And so that would be 10%, but they were making huge losses on each one, and
because of the fraud.
And in every 1,000 transactions, there's going to be some maybe one fraudulent.
Because the expectation is they have to pay the business owner back for the fraud.
Yeah, well, the expectation is that they're trying to build a service that people want to use.
Yeah.
And if there's fraud, and there's probably some kind of licensing around it as well, and regulation that they have to pay back. Yeah. But they have to cover that while they claim it, or they have to cover that while they and not actually get anything back for it. Okay. So they were actually losing heaps of money for fraudulent transactions. Okay. And so they had to think of a solution to that as well. So
well, obviously
it's something that everyone's
obviously it's important.
Yeah.
So as you say, so they use machine learning, and some of the ways they do that, some examples of methods used to detect fraud in real time. Simple things that you'd expect. So obviously transaction amount, location, and product type. So a question that will be asked in real time is, does the transaction deviate from a normal purchasing pattern? E.g., is it a large purchase from an unusual location? Another one which is interesting is obviously it can also, when you're using Stripe across multiple platforms, it's aware of cards being used on multiple purchases across different platforms. And so the question that it can ask is, well, is there a drastic change in the particular customer's spending habits across platforms? Or is there a history of fraud connected that they're aware of to this particular account? And that's particularly helpful when they have such a large market share of payment processors online. So they've obviously got a good purview of what's actually going on there in that view. The other way they use AI technology is customer insights on that dashboard that I was talking about. So they can also provide their business owners with customer analysis and insights into their behavior and their preferences. So they know what products they're buying. They know the frequency of purchase. They know the time of day that they're purchasing. And they can also identify common complaints. So they can identify common areas or even common products that are getting complained about or ratings and stuff like that. And so they can provide sort of the fraud detection, as you mentioned, which is so important to even what sounds like even the business model of what's going on here at Stripe. And then also there's customer insights on
that's really good data
platform.
for people that are trying to use stuff
Exactly.
to try and optimize their sites and
Yeah,
get
exactly.
better and
Exactly right. Yeah. So in regards to partnerships, I think this is interesting. So this is large notable businesses that use Stripe. For those of you who still aren't aware of what Stripe is, just to give you a bit of an idea of what's behind a lot of these companies. Shopify is obviously the big one. We talked about that on episode 17 if you want a more in-depth view on that. WooCommerce, which is another alternative. In regards to the financial services sector, they've established partnerships with Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. And I'll talk a little bit about how that works from a business perspective in a second. Software, Salesforce, everyone knows Salesforce, and Zendesk, which is a little similar in the business SaaS world. In regards to healthcare, companies called CVS and Walgreens, which are both American, but they're equivalent to a Chemist Warehouse or a Priceline pharmacy here in Australia.
Yeah, all our American listeners will know the
they will.
CVS and
they will.
Yeah.
I was going to say, whenever I see Wahlburgers, it reminds me of Walgreens. I literally just did it.
Wahlburgers.
Do you know Wahlburgers?
Yeah, like Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, his burger shop. Sorry. That's so funny.
Classic.
Non-profits, American, even like America's Red Cross, Oxfam, and education providers, Udemy, the course provider, they use it as well. So some big heavy hitters in the world of electronic payments. So in regards to their business model, I'll talk a bit more about their fees here. So the services, as I said, are basically payment processing, fraud detection, and a few other business management tools on their dashboard, etc. And so the fee structure is a combination, as with a lot of products in this nature, a combination of a variable rate, which is based on the percentage of the transaction, and then a fixed amount just to capture some of those maybe potentially really small transactions. And so that's per transaction. And it is worth mentioning that there would be certain players who would have negotiated custom rates and business plans with Stripe, although a lot of smaller players they will have a fixed rate. And I can't tell you a specific percentage for two reasons. One, because it changes depending on where the transaction originates from and in what currency the transaction is done in. And so additional fees that could be incurred or could be a source of revenue potentially for international payments, interchange of currency, refunds. If customers are processing refunds, that's also another source of revenue. And the other one here that I wrote down is interchanging fees, which is they basically just pass on. So obviously card issuers, like as I said, like Visa and MasterCard, they have a fee per transaction as well. And so they would be charging Stripe in this situation. And so Stripe passes that on directly to the business on a separate line item. So that's not necessarily an expense that they just incur, which is interesting to know. As I said, they're not publicly listed, so there's limited financial information online. Although allegedly, according to a couple of sources, they have been profitable since 2018. And so that's really when things really started to kick off. As I said, they were founded in 2010. So there was quite a period of building in that period.
And that's why they've got such a crazy high valuation as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. It's it's a bit of a money printer. So a couple of competitors. You mentioned one. PayPal would certainly be considered a competitor. Maybe less and less the more time goes on. And so another one is Square, which we mentioned Square in episode 7. You can go back and have a look at that if you're more interested in what they do. Square.
You've done your research on this one.
Are you surprised?
No, I am. I mean, no, I'm not.
Tell me what you really think.
No. I mean, this is great. Yep.
You never do this much research. So Square, as I mentioned, episode 7, they provide a more broad array of business management and financial products. And the final competitor is WePay, which is a real thing. And so
it's a real thing, all right.
And so that's my overview of Stripe. I think it's a really interesting company. It's something that we should touch on again if and when they go public, and we can dive into their financials a little bit further, because they could be a really interesting company to actually own. Because I think a lot of people, as you said, see it as a sort of a pretty good investment. It's a bit of a money printing machine. It's sort of the best in the business. There doesn't seem to be anyone who's really competing strongly with them. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on Stripe?
Yeah. So I remember in 2021, there were people who were talking about a public valuation of $90 billion, which is insane because it was one of the highest IPOs ever, or if not the highest IPO ever.
Yep.
And so it was a gigantic listing, and so all these people were still trying to. All these people that are working there are still holding on as well because
that's a good point.
They don't want to leave before they've IPO'd. And obviously the market went a bit south after 2021.
Yes.
And so then they're not going to IPO yet. So all these people are still, holding onto their shares and whatever.
Yes.
And I'm sure plenty of them still want to be there. It's not like it's a dead startup. I think they all pretty much would believe in the valuation. It's just that now the valuation wouldn't be able to fetch that. In the current market, so they're obviously waiting until we have a proper, another bull market.
It's true.
Yeah, very cool company.
Very cool company. I love it. A couple of brothers. So there you go.
Yeah,
a couple of brothers for an island.
That's great.
Love it.
I'm going to be talking about the future of agriculture, something that takes up 1% of the land, zero soil, no pesticides, and way less water. So this is a bit of a unique one for what we normally talk about.
Could I say one thing about agriculture?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay. I was talking to someone the other day, and he works at an agricultural startup.
Okay.
And so what they do is they do testing in and around farms to test the air quality and to test whether there is pollutants or sprays and stuff in the air from other farming around there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I said, that's interesting. So you've just got like these units on poles, and they obviously suck in air, and there's a filter in there, and that filter just checks the particles and whatever. And there's some AI in there where the person who's working at this startup is identifying pollutants and things that shouldn't be in the air, and it's teaching the machine how to do that itself, right? Just by
that's cool.
And it sounds really cool. And he goes, that's actually, that's how it works. But he's like, you're the first person who's ever thought that there's like on the ground. He's like, any other person I've ever asked thinks that they're drones in the air. I was like, why would you have drones flying around in the air? He's like, everyone literally thinks it's that. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And so there you go.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they're just stuck on poles. Anyway.
Well, the actual topic that I'm talking about is vertical farming. So this is why it's the future. So vertical farming.
Okay.
So why is it necessary to have a vertical farm in the first place is what you might be thinking, right?
I was thinking that, yeah.
Okay, so of the Earth's surface, 29% is land, 71% is ocean, right? Okay, so and pay attention to these numbers. It's going to get better, right? So of this land, this 29% land, 71% is habitable.
Okay.
And of this habitable land, 46% is used for agriculture.
Okay.
And so this 46% or 48 million kilometers squared has 23% of the land used for crops, and the rest is animal agriculture. And so that's actually a huge amount of environment.
We should stop eating meat.
Well, I'm more focusing on the 23% in this section, the crops, but you can if you want. That's up to you.
Controversial.
Make your own decisions. And so anyway, this huge amount of land is used for crops, right?
Okay.
And so it's actually a huge amount of environment that has to be destroyed in order to support that agriculture.
That's very true.
Because in order to have
we should
crops,
stop eating plants.
Well, we should start eating vertical farmed
We
plants.
should just eat meat. Beef.
Because
wasn't it beef?
Yeah, well, beef. Yeah, I mean, I guess
Jordan Peterson eats that, doesn't he?
Meat only. Yeah, you could go for a carnivore diet. That's actually really interesting. I've heard a lot of comments on that. It's it switches back and forth from being good and bad for you. So who knows? Try it out for yourself.
As does literally everything in health and nutrition.
It's true. Yeah. So anyway, if you want to have crops, you have to kill fully everything on that area of the farm.
Yeah.
Every animal and every insect basically has to be gone.
Yep.
And all those stats are sourced from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization.
Ooh,
So
very reputable.
vertical farming, some of the main advantages, right?
Yep.
So it uses 1% of the land footprint. Usually the farm is able to be placed in a building that's the same size as a Costco. So if you think about that, you think about a full farm basically folding up into something that's that small, right?
Okay, yeah.
So 700 acres can condense into a single warehouse is
Wow,
what
like
that means.
a big Bunnings or a big Costco.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So if you think about something like that,
Yep.
so for context, that's 529 football fields or 2.8 square kilometers.
What? Just
that can,
stacked on top of each other.
That can fit. No, well, that's the size of a farm that can be fit into a warehouse, right?
All right.
And so, but it's not. Well, it's less than stacked.
It's less than stacked.
So it's a different format.
Okay.
So, I've seen two different formats. One of them they had trays, and so the trays were actually raised up vertically like that. But some of them are individual floors of a warehouse, basically.
Yep.
Each floor contains plants that were literally grown vertically. So
What do you mean
basically
growing vertically?
So basically you have a wall and plants are growing sideways.
Oh.
And basically
Is that
how
what
it
you
works.
mean by vertical farming?
Yeah, so basically there's a whole wall of plants and then a whole wall of LEDs.
The heck?
And then on the other side of those LEDs, it's facing the other way and facing another wall of plant. Basically like all greenery.
It would be limited on the type of crop you could grow though. Like if
well-
you're growing tomatoes, they're all just going to fall off.
Well, there's they were growing strawberries there, and they were growing a lot of greens, a lot of kale, a lot of
Yes, I can imagine
a lot of
that.
spinach and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I don't think it's entirely limited in that sense.
I mean, it's smart people work on this stuff. Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. So
Okay, great.
basically, in the process of farming, 99% of the water is actually is kind of lost when you're 99% of the water that's used in this process
Yes.
can be recycled.
Yes.
Heaps, but a lot of the water is lost in farming, basically. And so all that recycled water can recirculate and re-water the crops again. So that's one of the huge advantages.
Yep.
Another issue is that the growth cycle can be controlled better because it's not in outdoor conditions.
Yep, definitely.
So the cycle of crops in this case came down to about 10 days.
Yep.
Which means that a vertical farm can yield 700% more than a traditional farm for the same area.
Wow.
So in that 1% of space, it can yield 700% more.
Wow.
Because they can grow so many things right next to each other. And a lot of these farms are using robotics and automation to move trays around, move plants around, move LED
Do you know
lights.
in which countries this is happening?
So it's mostly in the US at the moment.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll run through a few examples later on.
Great.
We'll put a footnote there.
Perfect.
So only some of the Earth's surface obviously can be used for farmland. So in using these, basically you could grow plants. I'm thinking of areas like Sweden and like Norway and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also areas like say Arizona, for example, where it's like heaps deserty and heaps, there's not much area where you can actually grow stuff. You could have a town there, and for example, you could have a vertical farm which meets some of the needs or all of the needs of that town.
The local area, yep.
So that's just kind of a future thought. Obviously, they're not at that level yet.
Yep. That's good, actually. And if it's like a big warehouse, you could put solar panels all on the top because it's so hot there, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah,
and then that provides all of your energy. Mate, this is fantastic.
Yeah, so vertical also allows air to flow more easily, light can be spread easier, and crops can be watered easier. So you can circulate. A lot of these have really cool water circulation systems where the water's flowing around and there's pumps and different things that are kind of sorting.
Yep.
Also, harvesting can happen 365 days a year.
Yep.
So obviously there's huge limitations on actual farming with winter and everything like that. So
I suppose you'd need some purpose-built machines to harvest this stuff. But
yeah, there's a lot of purpose-built pieces of it.
Yep.
So there's no bugs or insects or birds or animals. So birds won't be, in there eating stuff.
No, totally.
Animals won't be eating stuff or dumping on all over your plants and stuff like that, like they do. There's no bugs or insects spreading diseases, basically.
Yeah.
And so obviously that's like a really good.
That was the thing.
What was?
We had to kill all the bees.
All the bees, yeah,
Did you
that's
hear
right.
about that?
Yeah. So tomatoes in the US currently are grown more for durability than flavor. So there's a fun fact
What
for
do you
you.
mean they're grown more for durability?
So what that means is they're built so that they can sit on a truck or a train for 3 to 4 days and then warehousing and shelving for 1 to 2 days. And so one of the major advantages is building a vertical farm right in the middle of a city so that you could grow tomatoes that can just go to sitting on a shelf for 1 to 2 days instead of
Oh, you're saying we
to-
could grow nicer tomatoes,
yeah. So basically, well,
which are optimized for taste, not...
yeah. So these in the US particularly,
Okay.
A lot of things are grown so that they've
Yeah.
chosen the genetics so that they
Yeah,
can.
that makes sense.
They're a bit tougher
Totally.
and they're a bit
Totally makes sense.
bit more preserved.
But we don't have to optimize for that anymore. We
Exactly.
can optimize for flavor.
Exactly. And so
I like that. Okay.
there's less of
I
that.
love tomatoes too.
Also no so heaps. I don't know if I mentioned it. There's no pesticides needed for
you didn't,
keeping
but that's a good
off
point.
the bugs and everything like that. So that's one of the advantages.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to do something.
Well, apparently not. So these
apparently
these don't even need to be washed. Is what the
But you still get bugs still exist inside.
well, not in these facilities. They're like labs. So if you ever see them, they have like sealed doors.
Yeah, okay.
And people put on hazmat suits
Oh,
and work on them.
wow, it's a serious business.
And they're full of
Okay.
exactly.
Okay,
So
right.
just to give you an idea of how serious it is,
Okay.
I'm moving on to the cost to set one of these up.
So
So the functioning vertical farm I watched a video of in San Francisco was $100 million to set up.
wow,
So it's under a brand called Plenty.
cool.
But the price is currently rapidly declining to set one of these up
Yeah.
just because of the technology, because more and more people are reaching economies of scale.
Yep.
There's multiple companies that are bidding for the same technology.
Yep.
So those technology companies make more robotics and things like that. So a lot of it is robotics and production line robotics.
Yep.
And then there's a few people walking around doing some of the certain tasks.
Yes.
And so Plenty is the name of that brand.
Plenty.
And it's upscale on the shelves at the moment. Bit of a premium price, but they're leaning into a higher
I
quality
bet
as
it's at
well.
Whole Foods.
Yeah, it definitely would be. So it's a bit more of a pesticide-free product.
Yeah.
And they're also currently building a second location in Compton, which is a highly populated area. So that one,
Is Compton like New York?
Compton's in LA. It's like the hood.
It is the hood.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so they're currently building one which will provide 200 jobs.
200 jobs
and
to build it, or that's the sort of maintenance and running of it?
that's the running.
The running of it. Oh,
once
yeah,
it's,
great.
Once it's up and running.
Okay.
And so that'll be their second location. They've got a $250 million worth of VC funding.
So this is now turning to a company focus. This is interesting. So
Yeah,
Plenty. Okay, interesting.
exactly. And so this is where the next one steps in.
Okay.
A farm called Bowery. Now, when I saw this, it seemed like a smaller scale operation,
Mhm.
but I actually looked it up, and the video was older. The articles and stuff were a bit older that I
Okay.
was kind of initially looking at.
Yep.
And so they initially set up a New Jersey facility with $30 million in funding, and that was set up in basically an industrial estate.
Yep.
And so in 2021, it looks like they've raised a Series C of $325 million.
Oh, that's significant. Starting with 30. Okay.
And so that was 2021.
Okay.
2022, they've secured a new lending facility of $150 million.
Okay, all right.
So its total debt and equity balance is currently at $647 million.
Wow.
Which is pretty wild for just this kind of idea that most people haven't really thought of. You know, like
Totally.
they haven't really figured out that vertical farms exist or what they are or why it's better.
Yep.
And so,
are you aware of properties that they also own? Like, are they functioning, or are they? What
so they've
Bowery
got.
doing?
It looks like they've got 3 to 4 facilities at the moment.
Okay.
But they're distributed to 800 stores
there
at
you
the
go.
moment, so that's pretty cool. And they are in the process of setting up 2 new ones at the moment. So I think that's what the funding
Love it.
would be going towards, and then the debt as well would be going towards, which is cool.
Yes.
So onto a bit more of the way that they operate. So the LED lighting, they use LED lights instead of sunlight to keep the plants growing.
Yep.
And this means that there's a lot of power that's required
Can you do
to.
that 24/7? Do plants need sleep?
No, you can do it 24/7.
Okay, great. So they might, like, hypothetically, they'd grow almost twice as fast.
Yeah,
Right.
pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think of that, but yeah, I believe they do.
I mean, I don't know,
round-the-clock
but that's just an
stuff.
assumption. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they keep it running
Yeah, cool.
and
Okay.
automated. Such a funny question. Answer below. Do plants need sleep? that's actually really good. I've never thought of that.
Well, some flowers, they go to sleep and then they come back out every day.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know, so I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not an expert, but
Clearly.
that'd be pretty funny. So this is really cool. So the flavors of certain plants can actually be modified to meet certain taste profiles.
Yeah.
So modifying the output of the LED lights, the company, for example, has can add more blue light to generate a more crisp flavor.
Really?
And so they've been doing this and selling that particular product. The particular product goes to a restaurant in San Francisco, I think.
Oh, they like the blue light.
They like the crisp flavor. One of the employees was saying how they take it home. They make the kale into a pesto, and then they put it on their pesto pasta.
Wow.
People come around and try it, and it's apparently amazing. I mean, of course, they got to talk about their own product. I mean, they got to say it's amazing. They work there, but I'm sure it is good.
Okay.
It sounds like it'll be a really interesting experience to try it. Like I'd love to try it now.
To try the crispy food.
Something that's from a vertical farm. If you could do a taste test and you could have like
that'd be great.
Your farm grown spinach and your vertical farm spinach, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
It looks like obviously it's primarily greens at the moment, but they're working on new products. So basically they spend a lot of time lab testing and whatever to see what they can grow and see how they can grow it better and see how it's safe and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously the energy use, we were talking about that. So you could build one so you need to be close to a source of water and you need to be close to a source of power.
Yes.
Now, I don't know exactly how much, but I would assume it's like a huge amount to run something like this.
Well, some of these LED fixtures are pretty efficient nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, the LED would be one of the reasons that the cost would have come down over time as well, just because traditional lighting and whatever, using 100% more, light or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to ask one question on that, which is that, like, how much of the plant's nutrients come from the sun? And that's a question that we maybe don't know the answer to. And so, like, is it reducing the I don't know, the health benefits of this food by giving it this synthetic lighting?
So you would think so, but I think that the benefit of it's all about energy use, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And so the LED, basically the LED system, the closer that you are to the source of power, the closer that energy is transferred from that source of power to the LED.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, you're losing some there, right?
Yep.
And then the plant absorbs a certain amount of energy from the LEDs, right?
Yeah, photosynthesis.
And so exactly, yeah. And so then you want to make minimal loss to the lighting, and you want to make minimum loss from the power source, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can work out those two efficiencies, you'll basically have a more efficient system, and you'll have a more efficient farm. So I think it blasts it with as much light, because I think that the only benefit that the sun is giving is that light.
Okay. Cool.
I'm pretty sure it's the light bouncing off the
Love it.
off the
Again,
plant.
clarify in the comments if anyone's got any other opinions.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I'll say it more factually. The LED provides the light to the plant, which is all that the plant needs, other than water. So, so there we go.
Love it.
So you can basically optimize that to get the best yields. And so a lot of these places are actually, they're all like white painted warehouses. So like everything's white in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is about reflection, about reflecting all the different light onto those onto those pieces. A lot
reflecting
of it,
as opposed to absorbing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting because so they'll have huge walls of LED lights, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at the plants, when you're looking at a normal plant, you'll see heaps of shadows. There's one source of light, like it's coming from one direction.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the reason they get 700% increases in crop yields.
Yeah.
It'll be the overnight thing.
Yep.
And it'll also be because there's no shadows on these plants when you're looking at them.
That's a good point.
And
so every leaf is absorbing as much as any other leaf.
The maximum amount.
That's really cool.
And so they'll have a full wall of plant and they'll
good.
have a full wall of that. And there's all of these plants are really well lit. And I was thinking about that and I was like, there's no shadows there.
No,
so,
like in this situation where we are right now, like the one side of a plant is only going to get sunlight for half of the day.
Exactly.
And the other side is not going to see sun at that point. So yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah, it's good.
Exactly, yeah. So what would you need to start your own vertical farm?
Apparently $100 million.
$100 million or $30 million. So a lot of these are close to a power supply, close to a water supply. That makes it very efficient.
Or the solar panels, I think, was a good idea.
The solar panels is a great idea. I would imagine a huge proportion of the cost goes towards power and water.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And a lot of these farms are making use of a lot of venture capital money.
Yeah.
So it seems that the minimum setup would be that $30 million, and then most of them seem to cost around $100 million.
It's all relevant. It's all relative to scale.
Exactly.
You
It's
know,
all about
if you're going to have 3 plants, it's going to cost you $5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And no robots. Yeah. If you want to get a robot and 3 plants, though, it's going to cost you $10 million. So
true.
Basically, what a lot of people will be wanting to know is, can you invest in this idea?
Good question.
So from what I've seen, there aren't that many companies that are actually doing it yet.
Yes.
And all of them seem to be venture funded. So unless you can invest into a VC funded business, or you're an angel investor with the right network, then to the best of my knowledge, it looks like you can't invest yet. However, I think there'll be a huge investment opportunity in the future because if you looked at one of these companies, which was called Bowery. So if you look at that company, they have a total of $647 million.
That's right.
In total, balance sheet.
Yep.
And so with that, there'll be a lot of investors that are looking to exit at some point.
Yep.
So, whether they list, in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or whatever, it'll be an investment opportunity where you can jump in on that. And I think there'll be many copies behind that once people realize you can publicly list an idea like this.
Yep.
And I think more and more will start up as they've also seen this happening. So it's a really cool industry.
I like it.
I give the idea an 8 out of 10.
Okay, that's a good rating.
So the advantages are that it's potentially cheaper to run in the future if you consider that they're using the land much more efficiently.
Yeah.
And producing way more output for less land, as well as less destruction to the environment.
Yes.
And it could be a lot more efficient if it's placed in the right area where people are obviously they can afford to pay the premium, as well as it might actually work out to be cheaper. For example, the mountains in Switzerland, where people like better food and they also have to transport their food to those mountains, right?
Yeah.
So, it also will get cheaper if you consider that technology and robotics will actually come down in cost.
Yeah.
The disadvantages are that they're disrupting a massive industry, and it's currently hugely expensive to set up. So
arguably the first ever industry, really.
Yeah,
Like farming, agriculture,
for sure.
That's where it all started.
I guess so. So that's that
good.
segment there.
So I guess so what you're saying is it's basically the things that I took away from that is you're removing the inefficiencies of day and night.
Yep.
And you're smoothing out the whole issue of seasons. Which is cool for the consumer. Like, different seasons, you go to the shops and you can only buy certain things at different times.
Yeah.
Or like at one point, grapes are $20 a kilo because it's the wrong season,
Yeah.
And then the transport cost is such a good point as well. Like up until this point, we've always had to manufacture or grow this stuff out in the middle of nowhere, transport it. It's bad for the environment. Oh, the Tesla trucks are coming one day.
Yeah.
Like just having the food near the people who are eating it is such a simple concept.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I love it. It's great. It's a little bit off, a little bit left of center of to what I would expect.
Exactly.
From a segment, but I think it's great.
Exactly.
Now that you weaved in Bowery and Plenty in there, a couple of companies that people can look up, it's good.
Exactly. Yep. So I've got this segment from a guy named Quiver Quant on YouTube.
Quiver Quant?
Quiver Quant. So Quiver Quantitative. So a quant
Quiver
is someone who does more of the stock analysis.
Good with those numbers.
Yeah, good with those numbers for sure. So this is going to be pretty finance heavy. Do you remember a while ago when we talked about Nancy Pelosi and her husband consistently outperforming the stock market?
Yes, we did.
So that was pretty funny. So the main reason is that in Congress, they're fully allowed to buy and sell stocks and only have to declare these trades within 45 days of making the trade.
Goodness.
That's less control than I have when buying a US stock, which is really funny. So for my own job, I have to declare it in advance and then get permission.
That's
so
right.
So if that sounds bad, it gets worse. They can buy and sell stocks that they're on the committee for overseeing. So whether they're about to give a huge government contract to a company, or whether they're about to bring the business's CEO in front of Congress for an antitrust lawsuit. they can buy and sell the stock. So a couple of things. First of all, Quiver Quant has its own website, which is really cool. So this is a cool site that I've found.
It's on the screen right now.
If you're planning to do any trading at all, it's not a bad one to check out.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. So basically, this guy tracks the trades of. You can look at different kind of segments and categories, right?
Yeah.
So he tracks the trades of corporate insiders, Wall Street bets, corporate Twitter.
Oh.
Jim Cramer, the Mad Money guy from CNBC.
Yeah.
Wikipedia page views, cryptos, SPACs, Amazon pricing of the product.
Oh.
And hedge funds and institutional traders.
Yeah.
And of course, Congress members. So there's a couple of really interesting trades as well that you can trackers, that you can look at.
And he's tracking these people's trades or their sentiment and their comments, and
he's tracking the specific trades and putting them into a portfolio, and then showing you the returns on that portfolio.
How can you say that he's tracking Wall Street bets trades?
Well, because he'll find basically all of these trades that are listed on Reddit, right?
Yeah.
People will list them and people will upvote them.
Okay.
And he's putting together a portfolio of the trades that are the
most upvoted.
That are the most up. They must meet some certain criteria.
Okay.
And then that's the Wall Street bets
Right.
portfolio.
Right.
Which I think was up 7% in the last week, which is really interesting. So
This is cool.
Yeah, so it's really sick.
Okay.
So he'll
obviously for the Kramer one, he just buys the opposite of what he says, right?
Yeah, so inverse Kramer. That's the interesting thing. So I'm glad you caught on to that one.
Yeah.
So if for those of you who don't know, Jim Cramer is this crazy Mad Money guy that makes a lot of noise and
He's got a lot of buttons. Got a lot of what are they called? Buzzer things.
Yeah, buzzer things and soundboards. So he's got really cool trackers. So he'll show he can see port congestion for different ports, corporate flights, and campaign donations. Those are just a few of the trackers that you can kind of look at. And so one thing I found was really interesting. You can look at Shanghai port versus LA port, and you can see way more congestion in the LA port at the moment than Shanghai. Yeah. Which is really cool. And a lot of that would be maybe some of the union action that's going on. But really interesting to look at and see over the months where the graph has dipped in number of days that the ship has been.
Did you have to
there.
subscribe to see all this?
So you have to subscribe to see some of the stuff.
Okay. And it was still free to subscribe?
It was free to subscribe. Sorry, there's like free tiers and paid tiers and stuff like that. Okay. And so I did get caught up at one point, but it seemed pretty cool for the first couple of things. And then obviously, if you like it, you're making money from it anyway. If you're going to use it, so it would be a positive return on investment. I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah, exactly. And
you got to spend money to make money, right?
Exactly. And so they've also got strategies, which is really cool. And so one of the strategies was government contract recipients. So basically they'll buy when a new government contract is announced. And so that's grown 1,190% since March 2009.
These are only public companies.
Yeah, they're public companies that are government contract recipients.
Government contracts.
Which is really cool.
Wow.
And so there's that strategy. There's the inverse Kramer strategy, which has gone up 50% since inception, which was really funny.
That is funny.
And so as an example of one of the trades, so here's one from the 21st of January. So this is where the Biden administration committed $55 billion in investment into the African continent. So this is really interesting. This has happened recently. So in January, there were lawmakers that were buying up huge amounts of a company called AMT, which is American Tower Corp.
Okay.
Right. And so he's noticed this trend. And so this company owns mobile phone towers across the globe and leases them to network providers. So one of the priorities that Biden was putting in was more internet access and network towers in Africa.
Yep.
So AMT already have 22,000 cell towers in Africa. And so there's a strong chance of winning the contract to build there.
Totally.
And I think potentially a lot of the lawmakers know who's going to win the contract there, which is why they're buying the stock. So yeah, I mean, I thought that was a really interesting.
That is really cool.
Trade. And I thought it's really funny that a lot of the kind of lawmakers are literally allowed to just buy that, which is it's crazy. But
it is crazy.
If you want to make money alongside them, it seems like an interesting trade. Let's just say you don't want to remember to trade. You aren't watching all of those trades.
You got other things to do.
Yeah, you're not watching Congress all the time, and you don't really know what's going on all the time.
No idea.
But you do still think that the moves that Congress makes, they're going to outperform the market.
Conceptually makes a lot of sense.
And they know the insider info.
Yep.
They generally outperform Wall Street just because they literally are working on the deals that they're also doing.
Yeah.
Well, that'll soon be possible. So Subversive Capital, which is the name of the firm, filed an N1A form, which was to establish 2 ETFs that will allow you to trade Congress trades. And so what this is, there's one ETF that'll follow how the Democrats trade and one ETF that'll follow how the Republicans trade.
Really?
And so, yeah, it's really funny.
What the heck?
And so you'll be able to follow those Republican members of Congress and Senate.
And obviously, just quick clarification: ETF, just bundle of stocks that represents what's actually happening within that particular, portfolio of companies that you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. So you'll be able to buy.
And you can buy some
stocks.
units in those.
Yeah,
in that bundle.
you'll be able to buy a unit. So soon you'll be able to buy NANC, which is named after the Democrat Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, or KRUZ, which is named after Senator Ted Cruz.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's bizarre.
Yeah. So that's the ticker of the. Yeah. So they've named it after.
Are these listed on a particular exchange?
Yeah. So they will be listed, probably the NYSE or the NASDAQ.
Okay.
And then
Okay, fair enough.
The two that it can be.
Probably just one of the two.
Yeah. Well, I saw an announcement from NASDAQ about it, so it could be on the NASDAQ.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's that. This website, so it's called 2050 Earth.
Okay.
So I've stumbled upon this, and it's a site where when you enter it, you're on this rotating globe, right? So I'm gonna get you to do a bit of visualization.
Ready?
If you're a listener, I'm gonna get you to close your eyes, especially if you're driving.
No.
Close your eyes and imagine this if you're driving. So you're on a rotating.
You should be watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, watch it on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Hit us up on all the channels.
Or on Spotify. You can watch it on Spotify now.
And so imagine you're on a rotating globe, right?
Okay. All right.
And you can see all these cities to click on, and so you click on a city, and there's a 3D Google Street View, which shows what the city will look like throughout time. So basically, you can click through 2030, 2040, and 2050.
Okay.
And
20, 30,
mostly
40,
you can
50,
see
yeah. So it's all the future.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And you can see predictions of how things will progress.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
What happens is this article. Some of them are a little bit silly, and some of them are super interesting. And so probably things that aren't that far off what could actually happen as well. And also they're great opportunities for business ideas. So if you think about that thing about how prophecies become, what you think about is what actually happens.
Self-fulfilling prophecies.
Self-fulfilling prophecies.
Gotcha.
And so if you actually think about that, then you could actually make that, and then that could actually be the future.
Yes.
Right? And so these people are writing all of these articles. Some of them are kind of cyberpunk style. Some of them are future thinking writers. And some of the ideas could definitely be used to form a startup. So before I start the segment, I want to throw it back to 1967. So people predicted 1999 homes and futures. So one of the predictions was that each home would have its own home computer to act as your secretary, librarian, banker, or medical technician, as well as your bridge partner. So that's keeping in mind that the first personal computer was actually invented in 1975. So they didn't actually have personal computers you could use in the home. And so I thought they weren't actually too far off 1999, since many of the homes did start to get home computers around the time.
Yeah.
You had Windows 98 out at the time. And if you take a step further, here we are in 2023, where we can do our organizing, reading, we can do our banking, getting in touch with our doctor fairly easily.
It's true.
And we can play games just like we thought.
It's not, yeah.
So all of those roles are fulfilled today with what they were kind of thinking with secretary, librarian, banker, all that kind of thing. So future thinking, right? So basically, as you click on each city, you can see some predictions. So I'm going to go through some of these predictions. So 2040 Barcelona, low-cost accommodation in mega cities, will mean buildings up to 10 kilometers tall, built in pyramids, which will act as miniature cities within themselves. Residential accommodation, businesses, shopping, social, cultural, and recreational areas will all be included in the same.
So it's like a stationary
building.
cruise ship.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Wait, what year is this?
And so that's the 2040 prediction.
2040?
Right? Yeah, pretty soon. So
that's 17 years away.
Well, yeah, but some of these predictions are from 10 years ago as well.
Ah,
and so
that's the
some
key.
of them are some of them have been collecting for a long time.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure when that one was,
Okay.
but they could start construction on that. And if you look at that
Good, yes.
and you think about the wall that they're building in Dubai, the huge wall city, they've started to
Yeah, I don't know that much, but yes.
they've started to construct that. So that's
I've
kind
heard
of
of
the same
something.
thing as well.
Yeah,
so
okay.
by 2040, it's possible that one will be.
Yeah, I mean,
there.
yeah, sure. Maybe I shouldn't have laughed.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe you should have though. Some they do sound dumb, like all future predictions. I think
All future predictions do also often sound quite funny.
often sound funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2050 Barcelona is a world where
Barcelona.
personal data. This is just the area. I got fixated on this for two of them, but
Okay.
the other ones will be different, right?
Okay.
So 2050 Barcelona is a world where personal data leaks about banking credentials and passwords for online services won't matter because of biodata obtained from medical and police databases that are able to be used to counter forging of biometrics-based personal documents. So basically, you'll be able to verify and trust that something originally came from a person using the biometrics of that person, using that
Yeah,
DNA evidence.
You'd also think that by that point there'd be some pretty serious biometric fraud as well
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah.
to counteract that. But yeah, continue.
And so obviously for verifying,
I
and
certainly
trusting-
agree that some, 8-letter password's really not going to be relevant at that point.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
No.
I mean, you'll have a supercomputer that can crack it. So that's the issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll get to that point where people can forge these documents and use them for blackmail,
Yep.
releasing personal health information about people or
Yep.
ransoming information.
Yep.
As well as this, insurance companies and other services will be able to refuse services to people based off their health data. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's a little bit like Tesla's insurance that, changes your premium based on how you drive the car.
Exactly.
And it can
Yeah.
track it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool link. So all this health data will be able to be captured by wearable gadgets like bracelets,
Yep. Yes.
glasses, which capture vitals, headphones that capture brain activity, smart
Haha.
speakers that are listening to things that they probably shouldn't. A lot of that already exists today.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if this was
You make good points.
I wonder if it was written before Alexa. 2050 Tokyo will show the first 3-hour flight to New York with a jet that can hit extreme speeds,
Wow.
as well as that algae farmed from the ocean will be used as biofuel. That's the thought there.
Interesting.
So underwater farms, which is an interesting thought.
That could be for next week.
That could be for next week. Yeah,
Since you love
Um,
farming so much.
exactly. I'm going to do agri section every week. Agri segment.
Agri corner.
Yeah, agri corner. Yeah. 2050 Malaysia will show the first use of people switching perfectly healthy body parts for electronic pieces that improve vision, function, or hearing.
Cyborgs.
Exactly. Block your ears if you're extremely capitalist on this one. 2050 Istanbul will show the first use of a moneyless society called Natural, which is an AI system similar to a search engine, which follows you around and will take and as you freely take certain goods and services,
Yeah.
you can later do something for someone else too. And the system in between will work out the exchange of services and goods. For example, you give someone a bag of tomatoes,
Yeah.
and later you get free Spanish lessons from someone else.
So it's actually harking back to the original trading of goods and items.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's actually
but it's sort of like a system which can track.
But it's got to value that in some
Exactly.
some currency.
Oh yeah, that's why I said don't listen to it if you're a capitalist. 100%. I
That's
agree.
got some flaws.
Yeah, I agree. But it's an interesting thought, isn't it?
It's an interesting thought.
2040 Brussels in Belgium will have a mass chip implantation to stop illegal immigration and to control the population's crime rate in public areas. That's very dystopian, that one.
Mass chip. What?
Yeah, so like chip, like,
Chippies.
chippies, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I know what you
injecting chippies.
Right.
Yeah. So you don't have to eat them.
Bro, I love chips.
So yeah,
I need that in my body any easier.
You need an IV drip with Smith's chips loaded in the top. Different types of chips. That'd be great. That's a good business idea right there. I'm sure also, speaking of one of the previous
Doesn't it
ones.
seem weird calling them Smith's chips?
Oh yeah, it is weird. It is, yeah.
It's like my friend's last name's Carmen. He's always eating Carmen bars.
Common bars,
But
yeah.
he assures me he's not related. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea before of chip implantation like someone did that in with their Opal card in Sydney.
Oh yeah.
And so they put
he
that
put the
in
chip
there.
in his arm or something.
Yeah, so there's already people.
Oh, people
that are-
hate that stuff too. People are really against that stuff.
Yeah. Super against. There's also the sharing of services and stuff like that. There's already systems out there. Like there's already platforms which allow you to do things like this.
Yeah.
And so on the app, you say, I gave a free guitar lesson. Can I have a free Spanish lesson? You know, so
Yeah.
there's already systems that are kind of
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
It's a very socialist idea. It's not bad. It's but I'm not sure how it would work in practice.
It wouldn't.
So yeah, a lot of the very we know how you feel. So a lot of very weird ideas in there. Some of them are pretty cool. There's also a lot more ideas on the site. I just scraped a few from there, but it's pretty interesting to see the Google Street View with the artist's impression of what
really?
that time
Yeah,
will
that is
look
cool.
like. Based
So
on
different
some of those
people are
articles.
writing these articles and they've chosen locations.
Yes.
And you use this map like graphic to find the article.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of
cool.
them, I mean, some of them are just future thought articles that they've just put on a location.
Yeah.
Which
And presumably the people who are writing this stuff are not necessarily like highly technical. They're probably more like novelists and writers, right?
yeah, some of them are definitely
Yeah.
novelists and stuff, and
Yeah.
some of them definitely just have a great idea for
Yeah.
a future, and so some of them
That's cool.
some of them will definitely be dead wrong, and some of them will possibly be correct.
Yeah,
but
maybe, yeah.
either way, I think there's a lot of cool ideas about what to work on.
Yeah.
If you're kind of looking, or if you just want to look at a few predictions of the future,
Yeah.
and have a laugh or have a think.
Yeah,
and,
it's good to have a little laugh sometimes.
It's good to have a. It's
We
good,
like a laugh.
it's good to laugh at other people's ideas, or podcasts.
Just had a
So,
laugh then.
Yeah, very good.
There you go. You just had one.
Yeah, great.
Another one. And another laugh. Have you heard the Carl Barron bit where he does that? Where he goes, you guys, I can make you all laugh by saying random numbers or something. And then
Yeah.
he'll say like 49 and then everyone laughs. And then he goes 51 and then everyone laughs. And he goes 64 and everyone laughs. It's very funny. I like it. Rate the usefulness of that website out of 10.
Usefulness, I would say it's a 6.5. I
And
reckon.
interestingness,
I would say a 7.3.
Okay.
I reckon
still
it's
pretty low on the interestingness.
well, interesting. 7.3 is pretty high.
Okay.
You
You
know,
had something an 8 before. That was pretty high.
yeah, but that was really interesting.
Was very. That's true.
That's- I
That's
think it
true.
was-
That was very interesting.
I think it was more interesting because you could
True.
see practical examples of people doing it.
Correct.
Also, all right, here at HQLA, we're providing the water cooler chats. So
True.
or the dinner party chats, so
Yeah.
when you're thinking about vertical farming, you'll be like, oh, I actually know about that company plenty. And
Yeah.
it's actually really cool that they can use less land. So,
Correct.
if you think about it in those terms, saying like, oh, I think people will exchange services for free
Yeah.
to someone.
Yeah.
It might not be it's not quite as interesting,
Correct.
but it is a cool thought, I guess.
Correct.
So yeah. So I'd say, what did I say before? 6.5 and
said-
7.3. So
yeah.
average score of 6.8.
Okay.
How about that? You can find more HQLA on TikTok, hqla.com.au,
Yep.
Instagram, Twitter. Where else are we, Nathan? YouTube, especially. We post the full videos on YouTube.
Yep.
We got the video on Spotify now, which is really cool.
We do Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I believe there is some people who do listen to it.
What about Amazon? Are we on Amazon?
I don't know.
Alexa podcast? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know what it's called.
It certainly
Amazon
had
Play?
none of my
Google Play?
attention. Google, yeah, we're on whatever the Google one is.
Yeah.
We're definitely on Apple. We're definitely on Spotify.
Yeah.
It's up in the air as to what even the Amazon one is and whether we're on it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
might be.
We might be. Yeah.
It's certainly possible.
That's cool. Yeah.
I
Search
would
for
like
us
to make
anyway.
mention that we've certainly seen an uptick actually. So we've obviously been off the tools for a bit, as you might say. And
But we're well and truly back. 2023. Let's go.
we are shovel in hand.
Shovel in hand.
And I would say that whilst we've been off the tools, we've seen quite a major uptick. I would say in the realm of 100% uptick in the last 4 episodes on our platforms for podcasts. So that's just a little highlight from me.
And what are the goals for the end of the year? 1,000% growth from Jan to December 2023.
1,000%.
That's what you said. You said you're going to 10x it. We're going to 10x it.
That's 100%. No, that's 1,000%. Oh no, that is 1,000%. Yeah, that's true. It's just,
To get more technical, it's 900%. I think is the a 10x increase.
okay, we might leave that there.
Yeah. 100% is 100%. Sorry. Yeah, 100% is double.
Yeah.
Yeah, 200% is triple. Yeah. So a 900% is 10x, right?
Whoa.
Yeah. So we're going to have a 900% increase. If you
No,
didn't
that
know,
can't be right.
what do you mean?
900% has to be 9x.
It's not. 100% is 2x, right? If you grow by 100%, you double. That's 2x.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you grow by 100%, that's 2x. That's true.
Yeah.
If you are at 100% of what you were, that's 1x.
That's right.
If you're at 200% of what you were, that's 2x.
Yeah, but 900%
When you're talking, we're talking about
is
growth
10x.
versus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say growth by a certain percentage,
We will be at 1,000% of where we were
yes,
at the start of the year.
that's right.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Done.
Perfect. Nailed it. And here from HQLA, if you like the future, if you like central banking,
Yep.
If you like thinking about what might come, or even having some interesting conversations with some of the people in your life, keep listening to HQLA. This has been episode 28. I'm here with my co-host Nathan Notley.
Yes.
I'm Isaac Smith.
Yeah.
Follow us at Twitter below.
Please.
Thank you
Thanks very much.
and goodbye.
Bye.